Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. It's absolutely fascinating to look back at the sheer speed of change in 1905, and today we're getting right into it. We're going to explore exactly what that rapid transition looked like on the ground, specifically through the lens of one incredibly remarkable household, the Nicholas Brocke's family in Kendrick, Idaho. We're going to see how they navigated that super delicate balance between deep-rooted, time-honored traditions and the sweeping, unstoppable progress of the early 20th century.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're taking a chronological journey through the first 4 months of the year. 1. January, winter on the farm. 2. February, community and church. 3. March, spring planting. And 4. April, spring planting.
Section 1. January, winter on the farm.
Okay, picture this. It's January. Everything outside is snowy and totally dormant. But inside his solid, warm farmhouse, 50-year-old Nicholas Brocke is looking out over his highly prosperous 160-acre irrigated farm. He staked this claim back in 1888 and just recently paid off the mortgage. It's a real model of modern farming. But honestly, what's truly amazing isn't just the farm, it's the massive family he's built to fill that house. Imagine the sheer size of the Brocke family all gathered together for Sunday dinner after Mass. You've got the adult children who are out establishing their own lives, plus the younger boys still living at home, like 16-year-old Joseph and 12-year-old Charles. You just know they're probably out avoiding their barn chores to have a snowball fight, right? Meanwhile, 10-year-old little Nicholas is curled up reading by the fire. And the grandkids? Toddlers running around bringing this wonderful, chaotic energy to the whole shebang. Overseeing it all is Nicholas's wife, Anna. She's commanding a huge table that seats 12 comfortably. I mean, you can almost smell the roast beef, the fresh bread, and Anna's famous pickled beets getting passed around.
But around that very dinner table, a fascinating generational contrast starts to bubble up. It's literally the old guard versus the new guard. On one side, you've got Nicholas. He swears by his proven irrigation system and totally scoffs at the new machines. He's the guy saying, "Give me a good horse any day." Then, on the flip side, you have his sons. John works at the local livery, and he's noticing things. He sees more and more automobiles coming through, figuring out that reliance on horses might be on the way out. And then there's Frank, who's pushing for these brand new dry farming techniques to boost yields on their non-irrigated land. Now, Nicholas might grumble about those noisy, smelly automobiles, but he's a practical guy at the end of the day. He actually agrees to go with Frank up to Moscow to hear a lecture on dry farming. It just shows he's open to modern innovations, even if he wants to poke holes in them first.
Section 2. February, community and church.
So, shifting into the cold February sunshine, we step off the farm and outside the Kendrick Community Hall. This place was the absolute spiritual and social center for the community. The circuit rider priest from St. Mary's up in Moscow would visit for monthly Latin Mass, and after that, well, that's when the real social hour begins. The women are planning fundraisers, and the men group up to talk crops, weather, and of course politics. Which brings us right to this massive, incredibly heated debate of the time. Should the government actually be involved in farming?
Looking at this historically and impartially, there were strong, passionate arguments on both sides. Take farmers like Heinrich Weber, for instance. He was pretty grumbly about the big proposed Roosevelt Dam project down in Arizona. He argued, government's getting too involved in everything. Next thing you know, they'll be telling us how to farm our own land. And that perfectly captures this deep, fierce skepticism that a lot of independent pioneer farmers had toward any sort of federal intervention.
But then, on the other side of the fence, we have Nicholas's perspective. He fires right back, saying, "Look what water has done for Idaho. Without irrigation, half this land would be worthless desert." It's a super practical stance on water rights. He knows firsthand from his own dirt and sweat that centralized, large-scale irrigation is the exact thing that made his prosperity possible. It's just a brilliant snapshot of the lively political discourse these folks engaged in to protect their livelihoods.
And Nicholas's community involvement didn't just stop at the church doors. Later that week, over at his fraternal organization, the Knights of Pythias, they're having a vote on whether to fund modern electric lights for the lodge hall. Nicholas kind of weighs the cost, but ultimately, he votes in favor. He notes, "We can't stay in the dark ages forever." It just goes to show, he might prefer a horse over a car, but he absolutely embraced his civic duty and sensible modern improvements. Let's move to and see how this builds in Section 3. March, spring planting. As the snow finally starts melting in patches and those very first crocuses push through the soil, the whole community shifts out of winter hibernation and goes into intense prep mode. Back at the farm, Nicholas and his son Frank are practically buried in seed catalogs. Frank is taking a really scientific approach to agriculture here, and he proposes planting something called turkey red wheat. It's this new, drought-resistant variety that promises way better yields. Nicholas, who is always the cautious but progressive farmer, says, okay, let's try it, but only on a 20-acre test plot. He's certainly not going to bet the whole farm on something unproven, but he is absolutely willing to put the science to the test.
Now, what's really interesting about this next bit is the amazing sensory detail of community life back in 1905. Late in March, the town throws a box social to raise funds for a new school building. The ladies put together these anonymous, fancy lunchboxes to be auctioned off to the highest bidder. Anna's winning menu? Oh, it sounds incredible. Fried chicken, potato salad, biscuits, and apple pie. In fact, her menu had won top bids for 5 years running. And at the auction, Nicholas, who is actually serving as one of the auctioneers, makes absolutely sure he bids high enough to win his own wife's amazing cooking.
And the grand total from that fun, highly spirited evening of bidding? $40. Now, $40 might not sound like much to us today, but in 1905, that was a really impressive, substantial chunk of change. It perfectly showcases how these tight-knit community bonds and simple social gatherings directly funded absolutely critical civic infrastructure, like their brand new school building.
Section 4. April. Spring planting.
Okay, so all of that intense winter debating and spring planning finally culminates in April. It is an all-hands-on-deck season of pure labor. Nicholas is up before the crack of dawn and working way past dark. Everyone, even the younger boys, has to pitch in. So you might be wondering, how exactly did the Brocke farm manage to be so spectacularly successful during such a grueling season? Well, it all comes down to the Brocke irrigation advantage. While the neighbors are literally praying for rain or breaking their backs hauling water by hand, Nicholas has this totally innovative pumping system. He distributes water through an extensive network of pipes across his 160 acres. This means he can irrigate on a hyper-precise schedule, completely independent of whatever the weather is doing. It's such a massive competitive edge that his son Frank actually urges him to dictate an article about it for an agricultural journal, just to help out other farmers all over Idaho.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how far Nicholas has come. Think about this journey, from stepping off an immigrant train and staking a raw farm claim back in 1888 to paying off his entire mortgage through sheer grit, community involvement, and clever tech innovation by 1904. And now, here in 1905, he has hit this incredible peak of prosperity and family growth. The man literally built an empire from the soil up. But you know, at the very heart of all this rapid progress, the farming and the lively community debates, there is this deeply relatable, very human element. One evening in April, Nicholas walks in to find his wife Anna wiping tears from her eyes. She isn't sad really, she's just totally overwhelmed by the relentless passage of time. She looks at him and says, "They're all growing up so fast, Nicholas." Her children are getting married, having their own babies, and the world outside their door is just changing at breakneck speed. It totally grounds all this big historical data in a deeply universal emotion that I think any parent today can instantly recognize.
Nicholas comforted Anna by reminding her that, hey, they did their job right. They raised good people who were making good choices. They built a rock-solid foundation. And that actually brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with today. As technology and society rapidly evolve around us, what legacy will you build for the generations that follow? The Brocke family navigated a world shifting from horses to automobiles, from dry, dusty land to irrigated oases. And through it all, they built a lasting legacy of community, innovation, and family. It really makes you wonder how our own daily choices are going to be viewed 100 years from now, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning!